West. Jim West.
He has a style no one can touch.
Oh, he's so graceful.
A reputation no one can top.
He's so courageous.
And a wild side no one can tame.
Now I'm working.
Will Smith.
Nice hat.
Kevin Kline is Artemis Gordon. Kenneth Branagh and Salma Hayek. From the director of Men in Black. Wild Wild West. Available now on DVD and video cassette.
Part Super Agent.
Zero Top! Yeah!
Part Sex Symbol.
You're one groovy baby. Baby.
All Austin Powers. Mike Myers.
How does that feel, baby?
Heather Graham.
Lower.
How does that feel, baby?
Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me.
Don't go there, girlfriend.
Rated PG-13.
This is DVD. And this is what happens when you watch DVD. It's a movie on a disc the size of a CD. The picture is twice as sharp as VHS. The sound is infinitely clearer. It looks and sounds like you're at the movies, but you can experience it at home. Not to mention, you can watch it in widescreen, pick your language, choose from features like director's notes, behind-the-scenes footage, trailers, and more. Watch a movie right on your computer. And rent or buy DVDs from these great Hollywood studios. DVD. See how good a movie at home can be. With over 5,000 titles to choose from, make sure you see your next movie on DVD.
Yeah. What do you see here?
Bunker, sir. What's inside?
Millions.
They've got a plan.
Saddam stole it from the sheiks. I have no problem stealing it from Saddam.
They've got the gold.
Let's just stick to the plan. The plan is for the gold, right?
Now, they've got problems.
If you leave us here, we are dead.
We have to get him over the border.
George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Ice Cube.
You go now, please.
I don't think so.
Three Kings. Now available on video cassette and DVD.
You know, I get this feeling around you, like we've known each other a really long time.
Yeah.
Finding the right woman has never been
You didn't know he was gay.
so wrong.
I'm not gay. I didn't gay.
Everybody thinks I'm gay.
I'm very attracted to you.
Dad must be going nuts.
Matthew Perry, Neve Campbell, Dylan McDermott, and Oliver Platt. 3 to Tango.
I'm never gonna have sex again.
Now available on video cassette and DVD.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Be very, 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 very afraid. It's showtime.
This Halloween, treat yourself to the ghastliest collection of characters ever created in haunting and hilarious hits. Like Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice.
What do you think of this? You like it?
Steven Spielberg's Gremlins. And The Goonies.
Somebody's coming!
Look out for the all-new Scooby-Doo's Creepiest Capers. And Casper Saves Halloween.
Here I come!
Frightening films that will make you laugh till it hurts. Check out all these classic frights and new delights.
We're gonna have some laughs.
That'll guarantee you will see dead people. Now available on video cassette and select DVD. They'll leave you screaming for more.
I'll bet every kid in America would like to have one of these.
Something huge is on the horizon. The Iron Giant. Warner Home Video proudly presents the family movie event of the fourth quarter. The Iron Giant is the best reviewed family movie of the decade. An instant classic. A must-see. E.T. all over again. A wondrous delight for the whole family. The best animated film of the decade. Critics raved about it. More importantly, parents love it. And kids are going to have it.
Banzai!
He's a kid whose best friend is a 100-foot flying metal robot from outer space.
I am the luckiest kid in America!
Together, they blast off for an amazing adventure. The Iron Giant opened on over 2,100 screens and has made $25 million at the box office.
Yeah!
Everyone is talking about the Iron Giant and will be asking for it this fourth quarter. This monumental mix of promotional partners guarantees it will be a gigantic hit on video. Consumers will wake up to the Iron Giant video box on over 4 million Honey Nut Cheerios packages from General Mills.
Good!
A General Motors car sweepstakes. Consumers can win a Warner Brothers Special Edition Chevrolet Venture minivan. 10 million kids who go to the movies in October and November will receive a package of Pokemon trading cards. Every package contains a $2 coupon for the Iron Giant video. Plus, sweepstakes, rebates, and toy offers from America Online, Best Western Hotels, Trendmasters Toys, and Act 2 Popcorn.
This one's for professionals only!
Make the Iron Giant a standout by customizing your store with account-specific promotions.
Watch this!
The Iron Giant will have a massive TV and print advertising campaign, generating over 1 billion consumer impressions.
100-foot robot? That's nutty.
Plus, Iron Giant advertising will be online and in grocery stores. The Iron Giant has been trailered on over 18 million Warner hit videos, including the biggest sell-through releases of the year, like The Wizard of Oz and The Wild Wild West. Driving demand into the stratosphere. Each video comes with an exclusive Iron Giant action figure kids will love.
Just like you.
A day-and-date DVD release with special packaging for this target market.
Very cool.
Special slip-sleeve rental packaging is also available. Maximize rental profits with our buy 10, get 2 free rental pack.
Come and get it!
Plus, high-impact point of purchase will stop customers in their tracks. Get ready for the family video event of the fourth quarter, the Iron Giant.
You can fly!
From Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
This Halloween, 6 strangers have been invited to a party. If they can stay up till dawn, they'll win $1 million each. The only catch is that they'll have to live through the night.
Let the games begin.
House on Haunted Hill. Rated R. Starts Friday, October 29th at a theater near you.
In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, and no escapes. If cheating death, you have to figure out how it's coming back at you. Final Destination, rated R. I'll see you soon.
Look for this winter's coolest video.
When you play that, no matter where I am, I can hear it.
Sometimes a promise can take on a life of its own.
I'm home.
Dad's the snowman.
No.
Michael Keaton is Jack Frost.
What's going on?
Oh, nothing.
A father who gets a second chance to be the world's coolest dad.
You know, sometimes it's good to have a big butt.
Jack Frost. Now available on video.
going about 19...
You ever go to movies?
Don't care for movies. They make everything seem so close up.
I love the experience of going to the movies. I think it's a group experience. You want to feel the presence of the other people.
I just think back to when I was a kid, when movies really worked, you were just gone.
I like big Hollywood movies. Hey, I think that was the original appeal. I mean, there's a type of movie that nobody can do but Hollywood.
I think the key to this sort of blockbuster huge thing that happens every year, take the same care you put into a small character-driven piece as you would into a blockbuster. Just have more things blow up.
Meow.
Simple as that.
We really gotta get him. You gotta wow him. You gotta make him sit in the theater and put on a seatbelt and hold on while that movie takes off. I think we're going in!
I hate when people talk during the movie.
When you say the word blockbuster, most people think of big, loud movies that cost a lot of money and made even more. We think of mostly contemporary films, but the idea behind blockbusters has been around for a long time. The word blockbuster was first used in World War II to describe a bomb that could flatten a city block. Today it means something slightly different, but the effect is still pretty much the same. It became popular as a movie term in the 1970s to describe the earth-shattering success of films like The Exorcist or The Towering Inferno. But there have always been films that seem to explode onto the scene with a force all their own, whether through big box office, big effects, big stars, or just big ideas. These films were events in their time. When they hit the theaters, it was like a bomb had gone off, but the impact was larger than any city block.
The movie becomes a cultural event when it's both timeless and it deals with a subject matter or a theme that's part of world pop culture at that point in time.
Quite often an event film will be a subject that is so large we never thought it could be done. Then you have event films that because the films cost so much, you say, I have to see this because they spent every dime on the planet. There's no money left in America, so we have to see this event because we're all broke. Other times, two actors come together, we have to see this event. Just a bigger-in-life situation that we all want to be part of.
I ain't no psycho, man!
You're a disease, and I'm the cure.
I don't think anyone's got the patent on, how to make a blockbuster.
Look up there!
You have to push the envelope as far as just, giving them something maybe that they haven't had before.
Easy, miss. I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
There are no sure things in the film business, but Warner Brothers has consistently found blockbuster-sized success with one particular genre, the action film.
Warner Brothers pictures are unique because they've got that sense of kinesis and action all the time. The action never stops. That was the real glory of the Warner Brothers movies, is that they had this kind of energy that no other studio pictures had.
And they really never ceased from that. They've always pushed that particular genre to newer and better heights.
Lethal Weapon launched one of the most successful series of unqualified blockbusters in recent Hollywood history and practically invented the buddy action picture genre.
I got sent every action script imaginable. The guys were all fairly two-dimensional. And I found that the guy in the Lethal Weapon script was not two-dimensional. He had kind of something else going on. In fact, he was almost having a nervous breakdown,
You coming in? Come on, I'm going in.
I'm
jumping! Do you really want to jump? Do you want to? Well, then that's fine with me. Come on, let's do it. Let's Wait a do minute. it. What?
I want to do it.
Wait a
I want to
second.
do it.
What do you mean?
The guy has what it takes to be a hero. You just got to find it in himself. And the audience kind of goes with that because they say, I knew we could do it. I remember when we finished Lethal Weapon, people would say to me, I knew he wasn't crazy. And of course he wasn't crazy. It was to put a gun in his mouth and almost blow his brains out, but then realize he had a lot to live for.
Freeze, police!
Oh, another one?
You couldn't get me into a theater that's showing an action film. I hate action films. What was thrilling about it for me is that about a year later, a young woman came up to me. She must have been, 20, 19. She goes, Renee, I loved you in that movie. And I started getting a lot of that after the movie was out. And I think what it is that it's nice for women to see an equal on the screen. And in a certain way, we all, not just women, feel a little bit helpless. So I think it's nice to feel that you can kind of have some control in that area.
It just comes down to chemistry. The pairing of people in blockbusters. However, if it's two guys, team two cops, guy and a girl, guy gets girl, it's got to be kick-ass. It used to be a lot of great special effects, but once everyone started getting really used to them, they had to go to something else like good characters.
I didn't kill my wife! I don't care!
The chemistry that he and Harrison had together was what really made that work. He's a wonderfully vulnerable everyman who has charisma and style, and to play a doctor, a surgeon, was a perfect part for him.
When I came home, there was a man in my house. I fought with this man. He had a mechanical arm. Plastic? You find this man. You find this man.
There is nothing more aggravating than being blamed for something that you didn't do. Now that man is on a vendetta, not just to free himself, but to set that wrong right. And we are pushing him when he's tired and beaten and basically questioning his strength and his ability to succeed. The audience is moving him along. Then the film takes on a life of its own.
Give it up! It's time to stop running!
Tommy was like a force of nature. He was just doing his job. Then at the end of the movie, when you realize he really cares about the journey this man's been through, you have this chemistry between the two of them, which nobody really expected. So it goes out with this kind of hopefulness that a very tense thriller rarely has.
Thought you didn't care.
I don't. Don't tell anybody, okay?
Action films are the blockbusters of the 90s, and our fascination with action heroes is a sign of the times.
The action performer tends to cut right to the chase. He gets down and dirty and confronts evil on a very, very elementary level. So quite often we have a great deal of investment in our action characters because they are, in a sense, carrying out our wants and needs.
The audience wants to see people that they can root for and they can depend on in the basic format of an action genre movie where there's going to be a good guy and a bad guy. So you have your drinking your drink holder and you have your popcorn and the good guy wins and you think, well, let's go get something to eat.
In Warner Brothers movies, it hasn't always been easy to tell who the good guys are, and looks can be deceiving.
Hey, what's your name anyhow?
Clyde Barron.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Parker. Pleased to meet you.
A movie doesn't have to have eye-popping stunts and high-voltage pyrotechnics to make it a blockbuster. The definition of the word blockbuster is a thing of great power, an event. That certainly applies to some of Warner Brothers' most explosive films. They have used language and storylines rather than special effects to inflame audiences. From the studio's earliest days, these films have tested the boundaries of good business and good taste, with often blockbuster-sized success. In 1933, Hollywood began a battle with the censors that would last for over 3 decades. Every film that came out of the studios had to pass inspection by the production code offices. But by the 1950s, filmmakers started looking for ways to cheat the system. A Streetcar Named Desire had been a hugely successful Broadway play, but every studio in town was afraid to put the controversial story onto the big screen. Every studio except one.
Hey, Stella!
Well, Stella, I mean, he revolutionized the underwear. I mean, tank tops forever. I mean, every Italian went out and bought one after that. It became like standard issue.
Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, this was a revolutionary movie. I mean, in terms of the acting and the portrayals and the social consciousness of that film.
Well, I never did care for wishy-washy people. That was why when you walked in here last night, I said to myself, my sister has married a man. Of course, that was all I could tell about.
So how about cutting a Reebok?
It really told of the tone of the way women were treated, of the way men were the masters of their own domain. Even though they financially were strapped, it didn't matter. They were kings in their own world.
Now, that's how I'm going to clear the table.
That all changed. I mean, if you did that today, you would have people picketing the theaters.
Just remember what Huey Long said, that every man's a king, and I'm the king around here. And don't you forget it. My place is all cleared up now. You want me to clear yours?
Just as predicted, streetcars set off waves of protest by the censors of the day. Some cuts were made to appease the powers that be, but the filmmakers fought to leave in the highly sensitive rape scene.
Want to have a little roughhouse, huh? All right, let's have a little roughhouse.
The scene stayed, and the film took a quantum leap toward ending censorship and became a blockbuster success for its day.
Drop them bottle top.
I guess a movie becomes a cultural event when it becomes one of the icon movies or one of the movies that defines a generation or a point in time.
This year's Miss Bonnie Parker.
Glad to meet you.
I'm Clyde Barrow.
Clyde.
We robbed banks.
Bonnie and Clyde had a lot of guns and plenty of car chases, but that's not what made it a blockbuster. It captured audiences' attention and made millions because no one had ever quite seen anything like it before.
When you think of Bonnie and Clyde, it's the very sort of movie that Warner Brothers would have made with pride in the 1930s. But by the time it was actually made, 1966-67, I mean, Jack Warner had tremendous hostility to it.
Dear Walter, I finished reading Bonnie and Clyde and can't understand where the entertainment value is in this story. Who wants to see the rise and fall of a couple of rats? I'm sorry I did not read the script before I said yes. This error went out with Cagney, Jack Warner.
When Jack Warner screened the film, he wanted to bury it. So did many of the critics, and they nearly succeeded. One critic, Pauline Kael, heralded the film for its brazen juxtaposition of violence and humor. She called it a work of art. That review helped turn the tide for Bonnie and Clyde. The film that had been nearly dead was resurrected to rave reviews and 10 Academy Award nominations. It would go on to become one of the biggest blockbusters of the decade. Once again, pushing the envelope paid off.
I would say that was one of the pinnacle films of what we might call the anti-hero era of American cinema, where people who you rooted for were socially despicable.
How about that now? Ain't you something?
And truly, for the first time, I got a profound feeling for the way my emotions were being manipulated by the film. I was made to like these characters, and then they started dying. And I remember at that point, sitting in the theater, I said, wow, this is really powerful stuff.
Daddy, don't die, Daddy!
Making movies that are powerful, startling, sometimes even shocking has always been part of the equation for blockbusters. These qualities can turn even a familiar genre like the Western into an event, a movie that resonates for decades to come. The Wild Bunch was that kind of blockbuster event. The film upped the ante on the violence quotient and earned itself an X rating initially, a death knell for any movie. A few prudent snips later, the film got its R rating, but remains one of the most groundbreaking Westerns ever made.
Get rid of anybody. We're gonna stick together just like it used to be. When you side with a man, you stay with him, and if you can't do that, you're like some animal. You're finished.
We're finished. All of us.
The evolution of the action movie. I guess you can see it at Wild Bunch, where you create a bunch of characters who are completely non-normal. These are bad guys that are brought together to do a job, and they find some moral center to their characters. And then that moral center brings them to a place where they make a decision to essentially end their lives to do the right thing.
See these old guys kind of go in there to pull this one last big job. It was very symbolic in a way. These guys had all been in famous westerns going way back. It must have been really weird for them to make this kind of cutting-edge western. Obviously, Sam Peckinpah's always been known for his ultra-violent images in his movies. But the Wild Bunch kind of pushed it farther than just about anyone ever had. And I remember the impact that film had on me.
Audacious violence has not been exclusive to gangster flicks and westerns at Warner Brothers. Some of the most shocking storylines have been situated in the most civilized of settings. When you say family films, you don't necessarily think of blockbusters. Most people think of feel-good fun that often involves a cuddly animal or a cute little kid. Not at Warner Brothers.
You can sit around with a gin running out of your mouth. You can humiliate me. You can tear me to pieces all night. That's perfectly okay. That's all right.
You can stand it.
I cannot stand it.
You can stand it. You married me for it.
All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my brothers. Girl, child ain't safe in a family man's. But I ain't never thought I had to fight in my own house.
The studio best known for gritty urban action movies has been just as cutting edge when it comes to family films. These films don't fit the classic blockbuster image of costly special effects and hair-raising stunts, but they all caused a sensation by dealing with the kind of family issues rarely ever seen on the big screen. These films were events, and our image of the American family has never been the same since.
I think what you see with Warner Brothers in the 1950s is an attempt to adjust to a new culture, a new market, and a new industry. A film like Giant, which is an epic film, long film, and made in a style by a director, George Stevens, who I think you could say is probably as un-Warner Brothers-like as any director could possibly be.
After 4 decades as the man in charge of a major studio, Jack Warner was not used to dealing with an un-Warner-like director. George Stevens did take after take of every scene, and soon the film was over schedule and over budget. Jack was not amused.
I enjoyed Jack Warner. He was a charming man. George Stevens kicked him off the set of Giant and told him he had to go back to his office, that Stevens didn't go into his office and watch him work, so why should he be allowed to come down and watch Stevens work? It was the most expensive movie ever made at that time. It was huge. You have 13 sound stages full of sets. I mean, we built the mansion inside and outside, and it was just amazing.
Although not an action film, Giant has all the earmarks of a traditional blockbuster. Big budget, big stars, big box office, and big issues, including classism, sexism, and racism.
Aren't you the one married a squaw? What's the matter, boy? Just having a good time?
Get him up, Frank! Just do it!
Well, for me, the thing with Giant is, of course, the discovery of James Dean. Just an extraordinary performance by a 24-year-old actor who died some number of weeks after he finished that movie. For me, the scene in that movie is when James Dean's character strikes oil, and nobody thought that he would. And he shows up at the house of Rock Hudson at their ranch, drunk, elated, and he's just standing there saying, I got it, my well came in. I'm just as good as you, I'm just as rich as you.
My well came in, babe.
Fine.
Why, that's wonderful, Jen.
I'm a rich boy.
me, I'm gonna have more money than you ever thought you could have. You and all the rest of you stinking sons of Benedicts.
That's a story about class separation and how devastating it can be.
Even with its 3-hour and 21-minute length and Warner Brothers' biggest film budget to date, Giant became one of the biggest blockbusters of its time. The premiere itself was an event of epic proportions.
In Hollywood, a new high for glamour is reached as Warner Brothers premieres George Stevens' production, Giant. Hollywood has never seen such multicolored splendor as this blazing occasion. Proud of this mighty contribution to the screen is Warner Brothers president, Jack L. Warner.
10 years later, Jack would be even more proud of another Warner Brothers family drama, also starring the glamorous Elizabeth Taylor. Both the film and the star would take the studio in a whole new direction.
Well, aren't you going to apologize?
It wasn't my fault. The road should have been straight.
Not that, for making her throw up.
I did not make her throw up.
You most certainly did.
I did not?
Well, who do you think did? Sexy back there? You think he made his own wife sick?
Well, you make me sick.
That's different.
I love Virginia Woolf. You were magnetized, and to me that was again another of those movies where you're seeing them do things you've never seen Elizabeth Taylor do, and it was she stuck her neck out, and you couldn't take your eyes off of it, and it was really fun to watch.
I'm loud, and I'm vulgar, and I wear the pants in the house because somebody's got to. But I am not a monster. I'm not.
Well, Virginia Woolf was a very, very interesting movie because that you see relationships deteriorate like that in life. When that was written, that was very, very perceptive, I think.
Show you who's sick. I'll show you who's sick.
The constant beating up on each other, where you pick up on a person's weakness, and it reminds you like of birds or something. When one's injured, the rest of them kill it, and that's just kind of what they were doing with one another.
The censors fought Jack tooth and nail over the foul language in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Jack not only won the battle, but the war as well. As a result of that film, the outdated production code censors were officially disbanded, and the rating system we have today was put in its place. For that reason, Jack Warner has been called the real father of the rating system.
Pictures that you can just touch on something that has a little bit of a feel of reality, then it sells you all the way through the story.
Let us stay, please. Let us stay. I'll do anything for you. Let us stay. Get your hell out of my house.
Reality has always been Warner Brothers' strong suit, but no matter how realistic the story is, making a movie about a poor, troubled Southern family would not seem to be a guarantee for success. But despite its subject matter, The Color Purple was a big commercial success by one of Hollywood's most bankable directors, Steven Spielberg.
Deep in every filmmaker, whether he has the gift to do blockbusters or not, there is a need to get in touch with that part of him that cries out to be an interpreter of society.
Who you think you is? You can't curse nobody. Look at you. You're black, you're poor, you're ugly, you're a woman, you're nothing at all.
Till you do right by me, everything you even think about gonna fail.
You could put yourself into the dilemma of, Whoopi Goldberg's character. Living through her trials and tribulations makes you a better person because it makes you loosen up emotionally, and all of a sudden you find yourself holding back a tear or a lump in your throat, and it kind of like energizes your own emotions.
I'm poor, black, I may even be ugly, but dear God, I'm here. I'm here.
Movies not only have the power to touch us on an emotional level, they can also teach us about our history and about ourselves.
You're not an American. You're an African who happens to be in America. You have to understand the difference. We didn't come over on the Nita, the Pinta, and the whatchamacallit. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
Turning a movie into a blockbuster doesn't always mean making history. Sometimes it's about teaching it. Warner Brothers learned early on that some of the best story ideas came from right off the front pages of newspapers or from the inside of a history book. Just as there are blockbuster movies, there are blockbuster events in history, events that are so momentous that they change the course of history forever. And for this studio, making movies about real life has often meant real success.
And they made topical films, timely films, films that were ripped from the headlines. So much of the source material was reality-based.
In the early 30s, before the term blockbuster had any meaning in Hollywood, Warner Brothers was making event movies that were talked about and debated, criticized, and revered.
You people make democracy a fanatical faith. It's no use arguing with you. Force is the only language you will understand. And we'll speak to you in your own language soon enough. We don't want any isms in this country except Americanism. If you guys don't like it here, wait a minute.
Confessions of a Nazi Spy told the true story of a Nazi spy ring uncovered by FBI agents just prior to the start of World War II. The film was considered extraordinarily shocking at a time when little was known about Hitler and the Nazis. That film helped set the standard for the kind of true-life, socially conscious filmmaking that Warner Brothers became known for. A reputation the studio has not forgotten.
Before there was any such thing as a Republican or a Democrat, we were black. Before there was any such thing as a Jew or a Christian, we were black people. In fact, before there was any such place as America, we were black. And after America has long passed from the scene, there will still be black people.
I think that what Malcolm X allowed us to do is to document a historical moment that never, ever, ever got its rightful due because he was killed. Malcolm X, the movie, is a perfect example of the usage of film to the highest level.
Malcolm X is a fascinating character, but I thought that it would never reach heroic proportions because of the way, politics had been set up. It takes a brave filmmaker and a studio to say, okay, we're going to do this very ambitious project that may catch an audience, may not, but it's a story that deserves to be told.
A blockbuster is a thing of power, and sometimes the most powerful thing a film can do is to put the spotlight on an overlooked period of history and force the public to pay attention to it.
All right, I've arranged for the evacuation of you and your family. So now it's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay or do you want to leave?
I think Killing Fields stood out in a time in the early 80s when they were not making those kinds of movies anymore. The quotient for serious investigative dramas, let's say, where you're also doing a little bit of information or teaching or sharing contemporary history, those films are not getting made.
I think of Killing Fields as basically to show us and to, in some way, to document the atrocities that took place that we really didn't quite understand. The devastation and what was happening to those people with all the news that we have. All of a sudden, the movie told us the story.
You learn from films like that. They remind you that, be careful this doesn't happen again. Of course, it's always going to happen again, but it might change someone, somewhere.
One time he tried to discuss leaving. I talked to him about it, but we never really discussed it. He stayed because I wanted him to stay.
Anytime there's a movie about two men from two different worlds who somehow kind of find each other and help each other and against all odds have to find a way to help each other and stay together, that tears guys up. Guys watch that stuff going, oh, this is the best.
It returns to the old Warner's movies, the proletarian movies, the sort of the crisis of consciousness of the main star, which is my type of movie. Those are the kinds of movies I like to make.
What's wrong, Liv?
Boss, the president's been shot in Dallas 5 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
I'm proud of JFK because it is in the tradition of the underdog film, and that's what Warner's came up as.
You know who killed President Kennedy? Was there a conspiracy here in New Orleans?
The story is about underdogs, but the film has all the components of a blockbuster, including a big budget, an epic length, a visionary style, a parade of famous faces, and, most importantly, a highly controversial subject that is guaranteed to get people talking.
It was on every single editorial page in the world. I mean, it was written about, pro and con, mostly against by the media. But people in the street definitely liked that film. I mean, I still get letters to this day. It's probably one of the most talked about films still
JFK is a landmark movie, not only in terms of its politics, in terms of a view of history, but in terms of pure cinema.
He's been shot! They shot him on TV. Just shot him.
The way that Oliver made that movie and the style of that movie really set an incredible tone for the rest of the generation of filmmakers who saw it.
We're talking about our government here.
No, we're talking about a crime, Bill, pure and simple. Y'all gotta start thinking on a different level like the CIA does. Now, we're through the looking glass here, people. White is black, and black is white.
It redefined the form, in my opinion, of storytelling. The design and the style of that movie is breathtaking.
The first shot rings out, sounding like a backfire, and misses the car completely.
You completely understand it, but it's not told as in a beginning, middle, and an end classic form. It's black and white, it's color, it's 8mm, it's 16mm, it's 35mm CinemaScope. It's all over the place, and you're in and out of time, and you're in forward in time, you're back in time. It's just absolutely great, and yet it all works. And that's what's so brilliant about it.
It's the responsibility of the filmmaker to hold up a mirror to the audience and say, this is not going to be pretty, but this is why things are the way they are. You want to know how we got here? This is how we got here.
Whether it's history or horror, the best movies have a way of shaking things up. People go into darkened movie theaters in search of an experience. We want to laugh, or we want to cry, or we want to escape, or to learn something. And sometimes what we really want is to spend 2 hours with our hearts pounding, our knuckles white, and a scream of pure terror lodged in the back of our throats. Now that's a good time.
Joe! Bill! It's coming! It's headed right for us! It's already here!
Many of today's biggest blockbusters deliver big-budget scares, but that wasn't always the case. The horror genre reached dramatic heights in the 30s, but by the 50s, many horror flicks offered cheaper thrills to dates at the drive-in. These films couldn't always afford high-priced actors, so special effects became the stars, and the bigger, the better.
Yeah, Them is a classic. Just something about seeing the scale of those ants, up against a human was just wonderful. I think it was that weird sound that those ants made. They had some kind of weird sonic nuclear sound that they made when they got together. I guess ants talk that way, but we can't really hear it.
It's the best, I think, of all the big bug movies that were made in the 50s. It was warning us about what we were doing to the ecology of the Earth. We had had all the wonderful paranoias of the 50s sort of wrapped into one. It was just great.
The action horror type films were like B movies. They weren't really the kind of upscale, high-end pictures. And again, that was a horror film.
The industry had plans to change that. Warner Brothers' next experiment came in the form of some big new film technology and some little plastic glasses. It was called 3D. House of Wax was the second highest grossing film when it came out in 1953, but the 3D craze was not to last. 2 decades later, it was another Warner Brothers film that would forever change the face of scary movies.
Amen. God, defender of the human race.
Oh, The Exorcist. Oh my God, yeah. That freaked me out. I couldn't sleep for a week. I really do believe they tapped into a realm that's real. And I think they tapped right into it in a way that was just very powerful.
I'm Damien Karras. And I'm the devil. Where's Reagan? In here with us.
My family was very conservative when I was growing up, and somehow I got permission to go to the drive-in with some friends to see The Exorcist, probably because they didn't know what it was going to be like, and it blew my mind. I really thought it was great.
Picketed by church groups and dubbed satanic by evangelist Billy Graham, the film caused extreme reactions in nearly everyone who saw it. Audiences were reported fainting, vomiting and even throwing themselves hysterically at the movie screen. This was not just a fun romp through a haunted house. The horror movie had suddenly gotten serious. The Exorcist proved that a horror flick could move out of its B-movie status and into blockbuster territory when it became one of Warner Brothers' top money makers of all time.
It's a very thrilling, exciting movie, and it has those great moments, those great beats that just kind of grabs you and like takes you on this wild ride.
Debris! Jesse, we have debris! Debris!
Today, the rides have gotten even wilder, and finding new ways to scare audiences has become an art form in itself.
It was great to be a part of Twister. I knew that was going to be a big film. It's the second highest grossing Warner Brothers film of all time. If you press me, I do know the numbers. I think it's just one of those subjects that we're all fascinated by. And we don't want to see, our houses get blown away, but we'd love to see a barn over there that nobody's in kind of get hit.
That's the thrill of scary movies. Vicariously testing the limits of our courage, our stamina, and our smarts. But there seems to be no limits to the magic of movie making itself.
Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
There are certain kinds of movies that only Hollywood can do. It's filmmaking as spectacle, and each movie is a world all its own.
Batman. Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press?
Warner Brothers has long had a reputation for delivering raw reality in their films. But they have indulged our fantasies, too, with traditional blockbuster movies. Big budget, special effects driven films that take us into a world almost beyond imagination.
I need you, Dex. This is a bad one. The worst yet. I need the old Blade Runner. I need your magic.
Blade Runner was not a blockbuster when it came out in 1982. It was too different, too dark, too ahead of its time. But its $28 million price tag could be seen all over the screen, and the film's groundbreaking style turned it into a blockbuster cult event that continues to touch the imagination of generation after generation.
A big budget movie like Blade Runner in the future, science fiction, you didn't really see that. Yes, the Star Wars and Lucasfilms were going, but it was dark and it was weird and it was so interesting.
Blade Runner became such a cult classic because of the images. I think that what Ridley did was he gave us a world that we knew could be gotten, but nobody had ever tried to go that deep. It stuns you when you watch the images and you feel the experience of going through this journey into the year 2019 in Los Angeles.
But it's still a monumental movie, and it inspired so much of the genre that we see today that it was just a groundbreaking picture.
The inventions of these larger-than-life environments have demanded Hollywood-sized heroes capable of inhabiting them. We have officially entered the age of the superhero.
Hey, Jim! Whoa!
Excuse me.
That's a bad outfit.
We created characters that have mythic proportions, and quite often the characters are placed in a situation where they have to rise above insurmountable odds. It's very obvious good against evil, and every now and then you'll have some shadings in between, but the battle lines are drawn.
Saved by kitty litter.
You have to believe that these guys will do the things they're going to do, because if you're going to accept what's happening and accept those characters, then you're going to stay with them for the whole rest of the picture. In Superman, you believe a man can fly.
Oh, Superman!
Gee! Stand back, please. Stand back. It's all right. Nothing to get worried about. It's open. Come in.
Well, Superman is everything that any young man would aspire to be. Actually would dress up as the character in 3rd and 4th grade as kind of a role model, which is very difficult to live up to. But at the time, that's how strong the influence was.
Who you?
A friend.
What made the movie so spectacular was the human relationship.
Bye.
As much as he had everything in the world, all he wanted was to be loved. He wanted to be human. And unfortunately, fate has dealt him a different hand. Once Superman opened the floodgates, right away we realized that we had this ocean of wealth, because all these characters that have been very well hidden on the pages of comic books, we realized transferred into people's consciousness.
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
After the success of other big screen comic book heroes, Batman seemed like a sure thing. But there are no guaranteed blockbusters in Hollywood.
It was a big chance to start working with Tim Burton at the time that they did it. It was a big chance to use Michael Keaton as Batman. No one could believe it. It worked out great for them both, and it ended up being a more than successful franchise. It became their biggest franchise.
Batman was a breakthrough film that no one thought could be done. Once you have a filmmaker brave enough to put that on the screen, we are thrown back into that extraordinary world of escapism that we bonded to as a young person.
As a very young kid, I liked movies because of, I don't know, action, special effects, things that didn't happen in normal life.
Hold on.
It was the technique, the illusions, and the science of movie making that got me excited in movies from the beginning.
No matter how special the effects, or intricate the plot lines, or big the stars, blockbuster success is still elusive.
None of us can ever say what the great film will or won't have, or what it needs to work. It is just somehow you see it, and then it is.
If you can touch people emotionally and give them something very exciting which they haven't seen before, then you probably are going to have a blockbuster. Like, there are movies that people love and people hate, but it's all individual. But what makes them a hit, there's no predicting it. It's the funniest thing in the world when you sit down and people go, this is a guarantee. And it's not.
We're competing with giant lizards, and we're competing with asteroids, and we're competing with so much stuff that's out there. We got to reach into their brains and hold on to them.
This all started with a few people who said, gee, there's a screen, and if we put these images up, people will come. So you got to applaud all of those in the beginning who kind of struggled when everyone was saying, this is nonsense.
Every worthwhile contribution to the advancement of motion pictures has been made over a howl of protest from Stan Patters, whose favorite expression has been, you can't do that. We should strive for pictures that provide something more than an idle hour or two of entertainment. Jack Warner.
For 75 years, Warner Brothers has taken Jack's words to heart. The studio has given us much more than idle entertainment. They've given us 75 years of meaningful movie moments. They made a man fly, and they made a 14-year-old girl as scary as any monster ever created. They made heroes out of gangsters and killers out of ants. They made the impossible happen. Movies that are remembered for generations because they did something that had never been done before. They made blockbusters. For 75 years, Warner Brothers has said, we can do that. And let's face it, they provided a whole lot of entertainment, too.